Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
I think that was a really good segue. What segue? So there was no segue. This is the segue into part 2 of the Cool Fireman Podcast, where we were talking about where would you want to ride? What would you want to do for a day in the fire department? If you did not listen to last week's episode, you need to go back and listen to it now.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, let's do some housekeeping first.
Yeah. No doubt. I just wanted to kind of make sure that people understood where we were at in this episode before we go back or start it off. So, yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, housekeeping.
Matt, hit the list.
All right. Moment of silence. We are going to do a moment of silence on this episode. All of our brothers and sisters that we've lost in the last week. And if not, throughout the year. We've had a few that have been close to me. It's crazy. We can sit here and talk about it forever. We've had podcasts about cancer, and I don't even want to get into it, but lost some really good firefighters over the last year. So let's do a moment of silence for them.
Amen. Amen.
Well said. Yeah, that's a tough one. God dang. Red Cross, June 30th, still on. And if you haven't seen it by now, it's on Instagram. You can reach our link, and we do have a private link to our virtual Fill the Boot for the American Red Cross, and we are doing we're going to do a virtual Fill the Boot on TikTok. It's just a nice, easy way. They allow us to raise money through our link on a live. So we are going to just have as many people in on our live. We're going to have fun. We might shave a mustache. We might shave a head. We might, what did Freddie say?
Eat a chip.
Oh, Freddie might eat the hottest chip in the world.
I think you should shave the rest of his hair, which is his eyebrows, but
maybe I was going to say, when you said hair, I thought I was like, he doesn't have any on his head, but he does have it on his eyebrows. You're right.
Yeah. So
I got to think of something. I'm still debating this of what I will do.
All right.
So I'm gonna come up with one before June 30th. I got to do something.
Grow a mustache.
But if you're not already following us, the Cool Fireman Podcast on Instagram, follow us, and also YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast. Pretty much every major platform that you can listen to a podcast, the Cool Fireman Podcast is on. So this is like a part 2. So if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, which I think is, and don't correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm not going to be. It's going to be podcast 59. If you didn't listen to 59, go back to YouTube or Spotify and listen to it, and then listen to today's, because we're doing kind of like a 2-part podcast here. And Brian brought up an amazing question of, hey, if you were to switch spots for one day in the fire service, what would you do? And we kind of all had our own little answers, and then we're going to kind of continue on. And Brian has a second part, I think, to this question of his, and we're going to discuss it. So what do you got, Brian?
Oh, I've got to tell you guys what I got in my burn box.
Oh, Schnauzer.
Yeah. Maybe that's
That's
it.
And if you missed last week's burn box reveal, you got to go watch that, too.
If you want to know what you get into the burn boxes, you got to subscribe. All kinds of cool T-shirts, swag, tools. Yeah.
Shout out to our sponsors. We did forget that as a housekeeping. Shout out to our sponsors, Burnbox and UnkieSeasoning.com. So
shitty. Damn it.
You threw in 59, you threw your piece of paper across the room and it's stuck somewhere. I don't know where it was, but it's not on your desk. So we're trying.
You gone.
We're trying. Hey, if you're looking for a structured podcast, it's not here. But if you're looking for a great group of guys who just love to talk about today's fire service, you landed on the right channel. If you're looking for structure, it's not here. But no. So the episode last week was just as Matt said. If you could switch with anybody in the fire department that you've never been in their position before, so not like, hey, I'd love to go back to a firefighter or whatever. No. We're talking about if you could switch with anybody, and we got some really good answers. You'll have to go back and listen to the whys of that. So the second part of this is different. It's the same but different. If you could have anybody switch with you, what would it be? And this one, I'm not going to say, that's never done my job before, because they may have done your job, but they may have forgot what it was like to do your job, right? And that was kind of what, I don't want to give the teaser away, but if you haven't gone back and listened so far, you're going to want to listen to Matt's part of his story, because he gave a really good explanation. He had no idea that I was going to ask that question, and he kind of hinted around to it, but I want him to expand on it. And we even said on the break in between our recording was we could have easily turned this into an hour-long podcast because we could get into this second question. And that's exactly what it was. So Adam kind of jokingly said, hey, I'd love to be the retiree, or I'd love to be the deputy fire marshal, because of, number one, he's ready to move on to the next thing, but the deputy, so he could, pew pew. So my question is, I'm going to make Adam go first. If you could make anybody switch with you, genuinely, who would it be? Rank wise, not person wise, but rank wise. Who would you have that person be?
In my department, we have, there's the fire chief, which we call him the regional fire chief. Because Department of the Navy, we have multiple regions, and we're broken down into districts. So he's like a mini fire chief, and that's who I would do. Mini fire chief.
You'd have him switch with you?
Yep. There are district fire chiefs. I feel like that is the first level of.
We're just making fun of your mini comment.
Mini fire chief. Yeah. Well, thank
Is he short in stature?
Mexican.
The Mexican. It's like, that was bad. I retract that last statement. But that reminded me of the Shrek with the little prince. It's like the little guy. So I'm sorry. You were being very genuine and very serious. And
so we call them district chiefs. So our district chief, that's where I would. Because that is our first position when you come off the floor in the rank structure.
Okay.
When you come up through operation, it's the first rank. And a lot of our guys, we have, I think, 9 districts under our regional fire chief, and locally 1 out of 3, one of them, has been on the floor with us. He was my lieutenant, and now he's the district chief at another district. But the other guys, they didn't come up through our department. I do love it that, we have outside thinkers. That's great, because I think our region's been very narrow-minded, since it's formed in the early 2000s. So I love it that our headquarters, all but one person, is from the outside. They all grew up somewhere else, and that one inside guy is very open-minded. But anyways, get back to it. So I would think it'd be our district chiefs, especially the ones that haven't worked the floor here locally, and kind of really see what we actually put up with. I mean, I know they got a bigger picture. I've seen it, and with rank structure, each position you take, higher you go up, you get to see a bigger piece of the picture. So, I just kind of want him to see what we see on a daily basis on the floor. So,
okay. Matt, what do you think? I'm going to wait and give mine at the end like I did last time.
Man. Another good one, Brian. Another good one. And this is one, and I was sitting here, I was trying to listen to Adam as much as I could.
But you knew your question was coming. So
but also, trying to think of who I would pick. And there's a lot. And when you ask that sort of question, I think that a majority, 99 out of 100 people you ask, would choose somebody that you want to validate yourself with. You would choose somebody like, see, this is what we do every day. This is what we do. See, like I told you, right?
Right.
That's like a lot.
You should have listened to me. Right.
That's a lot of it. So I thought, as Adam was sitting here and he was talking and I was trying to listen and I was trying to also think about somebody where I didn't have to do that to, but I think that's probably the best answer. It's so stupid. Like I came up with this. I feel smart enough to be like, oh man, I beat the system, but then I can't actually execute it. And I can't come up with somebody where I'm like, how do I answer that question without saying like, see, this is what we do. Like, this is validate my position. This is why we make more money or whatever.
You gonna name the same chief you did last episode?
He goes, thanks for that bus. Was it yellow? Was it a school bus or was it a city bus?
It was a short bus.
Oh, okay.
22-inch steering wheel, dude. And he took me out. No, I mean, my first initial gut reaction, which is, typically your best one, was the city council, that we have a council in our city and they control us.
Right.
I mean, we're cities are built around fire services and police services. Let's just be honest. Yeah. If people didn't know that already, you want to build a city. Okay. Water, power, fire services, police department, those are the main things you gotta figure out if you want to start a new city. But I will say I have a small little story and this might be good for other fire department people to hear. And that's why I'm going to say the story because I don't have a good answer. I'm just going to be flat out. I don't have a good answer for you because I wanted to come up with somebody that I didn't.
But it's your answer, so it's good. Just remember that.
I don't want to be like, yeah, no. I agree with you. I totally agree. But I didn't want to be like, I told you so. But anyways, we had this really amazing day. We had the mayor pro tem, the city treasurer. We had all these. We had the director of finance out. I mean, all these big dogs in the city, right? If you will, let them bark. And we had them out and we put them in turnouts and we let them cut into a car. We brought them up to our training facility, if you want to call it that. And we had an amazing day. They put on all of our turnouts, our SCBAs, made them breathe air and feel what it was like in a very low stress scenario of what it was like to be a firefighter. So it was like kind of coined as like firefighter for the day. And I had my little engine that I was in charge of, and it was the mayor. We had an amazing job. Did
the mini chief drive that little fire truck?
Yeah, a little fire truck.
Just a little one. And, we pull up on scene. I tell her, hey, let's get out. We'll put our helmet on. She was like, she got out and she's like, oh, let's do this. I'm like, dude, how fun is this? Hold this. And she's like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, 48 pounds. Now push that button. And she's like, you want me to put that up where? I mean, just an amazing time. Just to understand. And so like to take your question a little bit, like one step further, like we did that. We did firefighter for the day and we took, a lot of like, the high end, if you will, call it city people, city administration people. And we put them in turnouts and we had fun. And I think it really opened their eyes and it really like, wow. Like,
and usually those people are unfortunately pro firefighters.
Yes.
Right. You need the ones that are not pro firefighters out there. And they won't go. I've seen it in some cities.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you gave that answer because I was going to give my answer of a station captain, because if you were listening to last episode, that's kind of one of the comments that I made, is that, you know, a lot of times captains will want to tell me how to run. And it's funny because you get the one of city council, and a lot of fire departments, city council tells us how to run our organization. Or like in Adam's situation, it is a matter of a district chief who has done it, but hasn't done it in a long time. And that's, you take Adam's name of his department, the fact that it's a DOD, and you put it in small town USA, it's the exact same thing. But one of the best things I ever heard or learned in a leadership role was, if you want to build fire trucks, if you want to change culture, if you want to do all these other things, you have to educate before you advocate. Right? You have to educate before you advocate. See, Adam's problem is because that duty chief, or whatever it is, the mini chief, may have done it, but he hasn't done it today. He hasn't done it in today's floor. He did it before. And so what he needs is, he doesn't need the whole class. He needs a refresher class, or she needs a refresher class in today's world.
Bless you.
And so for you, the city council says, yeah, I know you buy that extrication equipment. I wrote the PO for it last week. God bless you. So he says, you know, I know that, but they need to experience the totality of what you're talking about. I've had a department where, that I work with in my consulting business, where they literally were like, yeah, they want us to refurb trucks 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, no, because they see the ones and zeros and they say, well, if we can do it, it's got to be worth it. And it's like, no, this is not a boat that you can slap a new motor on and patch it with fiberglass. This is a life-saving piece of equipment. And so, you know, I think it speaks volumes to the educating, and then you can advocate for those things, because then once you educate them and you show them, then it provides clarity. So going back to mine with the station captain is, I would never, and I find myself wanting to do it, is to go into that station and tell them how to run that station. But I don't know how to do that. I never did it. And so if I could switch with one person, I would want to switch with the station captain. Go run it for a day, because sometimes I find myself wanting to do that, right? And then I also find myself wanting them to experience it, because they want to tell me how to do it too. And so I feel like one of the best ways that we can do that is, it's the same way as the city council person. They may think they know all about extrication tools, but until you pick it up and try to put it over your head in the middle of a ditch with somebody yelling at you, it doesn't matter how much it costs. It can't move fast enough. It can't cut quick enough. It's never sharp enough. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I think that kind of clarity is key. I was really surprised that none of you guys said, and Adam's a little different. He's the rank of firefighter, but I was really expecting Matt maybe to say a firefighter, that you wanted one of your firefighters to switch with you. And the reason why I say that is because today's firefighters are always asking why. And so I'm getting the captains that are having that same mentality, because that's what's being asked of them. A lot of them are asking, hey, why? What about this? What about that? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was really surprised. And I would dare say, if we would have put Doug, and I feel like Doug and Freddie would have been on, probably that would have been an answer that would have come up between one of those two, I feel like, because of the fact that, you know, we do live in a culture where firefighters, the newer generation, are asking for a lot of clarity. And it's like, look, I sometimes, like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, I don't, as much as I want to give you 100% clarity, I don't have time. Why? Because the BC is going to call my phone at 1:05 and tell me that my plans for this afternoon have changed because the fire chief called and he needs this done at 2:30, and everything that I had planned for this afternoon has changed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So I think that's kind of where I was going with some of that, was trying.
I have a reason. You want to hear it?
Yeah. So real quick, before you give your reason, I don't want to forget this. Drop in the comments before you trail off on the listening platform, because you know that everybody does that on every podcast. Drop a comment. Let us know if you, in your role, could have anybody take your spot for a day. What would it be? Last podcast was, who do you want to be in their spot? This time is, who do you want to be in your spot for a day? Drop a comment. Let us know.
And
go ahead with your thought.
After him, I want to add on to mine.
All right, go ahead.
So you said that, And that was one of the first ones that I thought about. And so, but because Adam went first, it gave me a little bit of time to think about it. And
the firefighter, you wanted to do? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were going to say. Like, I mean,
I'm going to, but, and we've said this before, right? We speak candidly. We love each other. I mean, this is, like we're blunt.
Well, you can say it. You started to say it, but you didn't tell me you love me.
we're blunt. Like, we're blunt. I think
are.
that's the easy answer, Brian. That's the easy answer.
It is.
That's the easy answer. Of course, I would want a firefighter sit in my spot and see, hey, you got to come in the morning. You're in charge of the fire engine. You got to come up with a plan for the day. We have a conference call at 0730. So we start at 0700. We at 0730, we have conference call. The chief gets on. He says, hey, welcome. This is today, A shift, whatever it is, B shift, C shift, whatever. This is what I'm doing today. Go ahead. Station 1, what do you got? And
that's cool.
And when station 2 gets up, when station 3, I'm at station 4. So I say, hey, good morning. Station 4, we got, you got myself, you got Jeff White driving, you got, Aaron Payne sitting backwards, and we got our ambulances all good. We're in engine 4. You have your relief in the back. That's kind of how I start, but you got to come up. Hey, we're doing training in the morning. Hey, we've got to sign this. That's part of it. Right. And so, yeah, of course I would love for like a firefighter to understand what kind of goes with creating that plan, and it's silly, right? So it's not silly. It's not silly. It's like a hard medium. It's like a lot of people have said, like, oh, conference call is so stupid because all you do is get on and say, hey, we're all good to go. PT in the morning. We're going to do training and inspections. Thanks for coming. But to be honest, I don't actually like it because it's an open form of communication that kind of lets me know, hey, the chief's going to be out of town during these times doing a meeting, whatever it is, right? It just makes things a little bit easier for the captain. But I just thought it was the easy answer. So that's all I'm going to say to that, Brian, is I wanted to kind of think outside the box a little bit for the answer rather than just saying, yeah, I would love for a firefighter to understand what a captain goes through every day. Like another thing is I work 3O staff. My firefighter feels my pain much more, in my opinion, than in a big department. And I would love for maybe Unkie or even maybe you, Brian, or whatever, or Doug to chime in on this because, well, I don't know. I feel like
you're in the trenches with us on that truck.
The firefighter is more in the trenches with me, and we are together on decisions and everything throughout the day more because it's really hard to explain. I don't know. That's just
you're explaining to us, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. I know we want to do A, B, and C, but I heard some rumblings on this conference call that D, E, and F about to happen. Yeah. So I need y'all to bear with me and be flexible today.
Yeah, and they already know.
And maybe. Adam, hold on to your hat here for a second. Like, you're not literally, but like to your comment. But I guess my thought process with that, and the reason why I said a station captain was because some of the comments that I've had with station captains, multiple departments is, and I'm going to summarize it in this, and I've given this comment before, was their decision and their ability to articulate the decision of making sure that everything that they do that day ensures that whole crew goes home the next day is different than just deciding on where they go to lunch, the workout that they do that day. It is different. And so I don't think that is the canned answer. As the fire chief, the 50,000-foot overview, I need for that captain to understand the totality of those decisions because why? Those retirements. That was another thing we talked about right before you were coming on episode 59, the one before we started this 2-part recording, was the fire chief is thinking about, when Matt goes to retire, who's going to take his place? And are they going to think as in-depth as Matt did? And so I think you take your role a lot, I don't want to say less serious, but I don't think you give the bugles above you enough credit for the trust that they instill in you. And I think that because it is very minuscule. Hey, what are you doing? Da, 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 da. But to be able to entrust with you, not only the safety and well-being of the city, but those firefighters that they go home and that they are being prepared for what? the next generation of, ABC City. I think that's what it is. And so when you said, hey, I'd love to sit in the fire chief's chair, I mean, on the last episode, I was kind of like, yeah, because man, that's a totally different perspective. I mean, it's a totally different view because it is 50,000 because he's not making the decision of whether he's pushing this med or that med on that medical call. You're doing that. And that's critical, but you're also making sure that when it comes to the longevity of the organization, he's getting the positions. You're ensuring that people are going to be ready. And I think that because like you said, there's so much in the trenches of that you've got to make sure that those people are ready because he or she, we keep saying it's he or she, that they are providing the means to allow you to do that. They're agreeing to the policies. They're creating the mechanisms to empower you to do it because who has the greatest influence? You do, right? You see turnover in an organization that's large. It starts where? The accountability starts at that station level. And we've seen that post-COVID, like in the fire service, this mass exodus of people. And so when you look at that, that's the reason why I kind of asked that second part of that question. If you could have somebody flip with you, who would it be and why? Is because there's people who are going, man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this, whatever. It's one thing to say that at year 25. It's another thing to say that at year 5, right? Because why are you burnt out at year 5? Radio silence. And so in that station, in the trenches together, what kind of I'm going to give the C word. What kind of culture are we creating? What kind of dialogue are we creating with our people? What kind of clarity are we giving our people? So that way they understand that those decisions that we make are that important. So, I'm not jabbing you. I think everything that you gave is 100% accurate. And I think Adam's is 100% accurate. And that's why that communication has got to go both ways. That duty chief that hasn't been on the floor in forever has to understand that today's firefighter is not the firefighter it was when he was on the floor. And that same firefighter needs to understand that the guy that's riding that desk in the station and also that right front seat is also making sure that there's somebody ready to take his or her spot when he moves up or she moves up or they leave. And I think that is the difference. And I think that you said it a million times about your battalion chief about the communication and how we're just people sitting around talking, right? But it's so important for us to slow down, talk through these things, make sure that people understand the end goal and the mission that we have. Because if not, what are we doing? Except for doing today and then going home and not worrying about tomorrow. Yeah. Right? And I think that's the crazy part about it is making sure that we have that end goal in mind. Our prompt and what kind of got me thinking about this when I was looking at it and that video, if you watch last episode, what I mentioned was there was I keep saying young. I watched a TikTok right before we came on as I was eating dinner by myself here. The family was out doing stuff. And I watched a video of how there was a gentleman who had Down syndrome and he was allowed to be chief for the day. And that was about making a dream come true for that young man. And they let him do firefighting. They did everything that you said for the city council piece of this. And we can do that for somebody who it's kind of to make their dream come true, right? And I think we should do that 110%. I'm not saying we don't. But what I'm saying is that when we're providing the service demand that we've talked about that's expected, but also the service demand that the city's built upon, we won't do it. We won't have the communication. We won't provide the clarity. We won't, allow that kind of transparency. And I'm not saying that we don't. Sometimes we forget to do that. And that's the frustrating part. I do think what works best though is what you guys just said, because you are in that unit of 4 or 5, 3 to 5 in that station. And so some of the best communication model in the fire service is that firehouse. And then it loses itself thereafter. And so that's the reason why you see that bondness that is so close there and such a disconnect. You can have, even at the duty chief level, right? Because they're not there. And even when they are housed there, they're different. It's a them. It's a them mentality. They're not part of us. It's them. Or when the training chief comes by or the prevention guys, same shirt, same badge, but that collapse of that communication. That's why I kind of wanted this to happen, because as we look into the future of how we can kind of help our own organizations, sometimes some of the best things we can do is just invite somebody to lunch, especially at the firehouse level, and say, hey, do you mind grabbing lunch with us and talking? I've got some questions, right? And what does that hurt? Nothing. It doesn't hurt anything. They're going to be like, what's going on? Are they setting me up for something? What's going on? Why are we doing this? And I think that that's some of the best things that can happen. A cup of coffee, right? You're going to throw half a pot out anyways.
Yeah.
Bring the guy by, the lady by, talk to him, get some clarity. I think that would go a long, long way for a lot of people.
Yeah. You stole my final thoughts. Like
what?
right away. I mean, because I was going to listen, to you speak. And then at the end, I was going to say, you know what, Brian, you can do this. You can sit and you do a ride along on any engine. You just ask, right? Yeah. Any captain's gonna be like, yep, we got a spot for you. Or, you figure it out. I don't know, how you guys work, but sure. For us, our fire marshal can sit in our 4th spot on my engine any day just to see what we do. And he can come out. In fact, I told my guys, I said, I would love for the fire marshal just to come out for an hour or two and do just engine company inspections with us and just kind of give us like a very low key surface level thing that we should be looking for. I mean, we already kind of know what we're looking for. I mean, we've been doing it for a few years, but just, he's going to give us some nuggets. He's going to give us some nuggets. You know what I mean? And it's only going to help us be better. It's only going to help us be better. And I could reach out to the fire chief. I mean, I work at a small organization and I am lucky. And to be honest with you, if I ended up where I wanted to before I got hired, I wouldn't have this opportunity. But I am and I've said this a few times on this podcast, and I'll say it as many times as I can. I'm proud of my organization because I can go knock on the fire chief's door. And, that other organization might say that it's okay to do that, but is it really? And I could knock and be like, hey, you got a few hours. I just want to sit down. What are you working on? And he would dude, we would go to lunch. He'd have us I mean, I could do that. Absolutely. And maybe I should. Yeah. And now we're having and we're having this conversation. And the guys that are listening to this conversation are thinking the same thing. They're going, damn, maybe I should do that. And that's why we're having this conversation.
Right. That's the reason why I brought it up, is because I want people to be able to do it. And I'm going to say this in my own organization is it's about making the time. It's about investing the time. And unfortunately, I'm in a place right now where it's very hard for me to spend that time. I said I wanted to do it. I'm not necessarily able to do it. Desire and ability are 2 different words in the dictionary for a reason. Because if they were the same, they'd be in the thesaurus as well, right? So it's one of those things where I want to do it. Being able to do it is a little bit different. And that's not an excuse. It's like, man, he just gave this big, stump speech, but there it is. And that's the fact that's not fair. At the end of the day, I have so much. What I'm asking, and the reason why I bring this up, is because you have to take an organizational pulse and say, can I do it right now? And if not, then don't be frustrated with the person who can't because of what's going on, the demands of it. That would be like getting frustrated at a battalion chief who gave an order, and you said, well, why are we going to do that way? And he's like, we're in the middle of an incident. We're not going to do that right now. Take the order, right? Like, that's kind of where you're at. Your organization may be at a place where you just don't have time to do it right now. But that's called empathy. You look at people in that moment with empathy and allow them to do what they need to do and say, hey, look, the lunch, the coffee, hey, look, you're going to eat lunch, right? Do you mind swinging by and we just talk through it through lunch, if nothing else? And it's like, well, I didn't think about that. Because why? A lot of folks at that level, you start getting the bugles on your shirt and everything else. You're so super focused on everything that you have to get done and the demands that are put on you. And that's not an excuse. That's just truth. You're there. And I think we've even mentioned it before. Plus, I don't want to say you're intimidated by it, but you don't want it to be an I gotcha, right? And I think so many chiefs are afraid to get put at a table with 6, 7 firefighters, and it's a moments of I gotcha. Or the other way around. Firefighters don't want to bring the chief because they're afraid that when he or she sits down, it's going to be like, well, I don't want to ask questions because then what's going to happen? They're going to remember that. And I do want to promote, and I do, so you've got to build that certain level of trust first to make that kind of the organization culture that you're talking about, when you can just go knock on the door and say that, it takes time to even build to that point. So Adam had a thought like a long time ago. I told him to hold on to his hat and he let go. What was your thought?
I'm so surprised I actually still remember it. But because I've done the whole union thing, and I came in a group after where you had to be on the desk to get things done. We were the generations like, let's just have an open dialogue. And the reason why I would like the district chiefs to write down, even the guy that, all the local ones, is because you have implemented policy 1. All right. I know why you did it. I know, why it needs to be done, this kind of thing, but come ride with us. And so you can see, because we're telling you this policy needs to be tweaked, or instead of coming out with this blanket policy, you need to deal with the individual. But you need to see how this policy does not work. And this is why. And I'm a visual learner. You can see that. But you also, while you're doing that, I need you to see over here, this is where we do need attention and policies at. This is where we need to be taken care of. We need help in this area. And sometimes they tend to shy of that specific area because they don't want to do nothing about it. But you see us there at 2:00 in the morning dealing with this a certain type of issue, you understand why this is a problem for us, not the other policy that you came out with.
Do you guys?
I just want you to see it from our end, and then have an open dialogue. Yeah, because sometimes there are stuff that's bigger than the firefighters. The bigger piece of the pie. You don't have to tell me everything, but you can explain yourself a little bit better, and by visually.
I know we're coming up on the 30 minutes, and I just want to ask both of you a real quick question.
I do love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Does your organizations do a mandatory review of all policies every so often?
We have a policy saying that our SOPs will just be done every 5 years. And we have SOPs that are 25 to 30 years old.
Okay. So they're reviewed. That doesn't mean that there won't change according to the organization.
I don't think so. Ours has been reviewed at all. Well, we do have a newer administration has come in, and these are all outsider guys, and they are truly reviewing them and going through them. So I think things are promising. So,
and Matt, you shook your head no, because the listeners were not able to see or not able to hear what the wind shaking on that beautiful stash as it waved in the wind. So the answer was no.
No. We have the same thing as kind of Adam. It's like we have SOPs that have been in the works since the 80s. I mean, you bring it up in we call it the extract or whatever. It's a city network, and as a captain, you study certain policies, and actually even as an engineer, and you bring up things, and it says it's dated 1989. You're like, geez, it was written out with a typewriter for sure.
The whole section is about volume and pressure being separate. Why do we even talk about that in this policy?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was getting at. I do think it's important to at least review them every couple of years. My personal opinion is 5 is probably too much. I think you should be looking at them every 2 to 3 years. And the reason why I say that is if you look at the technology that comes out and innovation and standards, I mean, it's just the knowledge that's there. I mean, battery operated tools, these kind of things, systems, techniques. And again, I'm not saying it should be down to that molecular level, but there's a lot of policies that were done at that molecular level. And so if you're not doing anything more than generalizing your policies and then just reviewing and saying, is this still considered best practice? I mean, think about it. Standards, NFPA standards are updated every 4 years. This is another podcast, so we'll probably have to put a pin in this. Suggestions, right? But policies, NFPA standards are updated every 4 years. So if you're thinking about that, if you land between that 3 and 5 year mark for that, you're at least keeping up with the standard that oversees the policy of the practice that you're doing, if nothing else. And so just a simple review of going, hey, is this still considered the best way to do it? And if you say, we're not going to do that, we're not going to adopt that standard, at least you've paired yourself or evaluated it in that level. And there are certain ones, conduct. Hey, still don't wear your t-shirt and get sloppy drunk. That doesn't change for 25, 30 years. That's okay. But just look at it and make sure that there's nothing that has changed. Conduct don't become in that kind of stuff.
Well, unfortunately, Chief Hill, that I called out in the previous podcast, would be calling out you, Brian, saying you can sit in my position for a day and then try to implement every 2 to 3 years. We go over
the majority of organizations that we're in, the chiefs will review some, but captains do it other ones. Because again, why would a chief that doesn't do extrication do the extrication policy?
Sure.
Yeah. Right. And so if you don't like the way it's being done, right, go back to the comment that Adam made, is why would a chief push down a policy that they don't do? One of the best ways to keep the gripe from happening is have the person who does the work write the policy, and the other one just go back and say, is it legal and ethical? Yep. Let me put a rubber stamp on that.
Not as easy.
And we have had people write policies, write people up for awards, and it just sits on a desk. Not at the district chief level, sometimes at that level, or even higher in our headquarters, where people have rewritten SOPs. Captain Rolfe has asked me to write up Brian Kelly for being an awesome guy, for doing his job, doing this extra thing. I turn it into him, and his response is, well, that's him just doing his job. I expect nothing less. Well, you just told me to write this guy up because he went above and beyond, and I turned it in, and you try and go, well, he's just doing his job. I don't expect nothing more. Nothing less. So do you think, but yet the next email is like, I need people to write their guys up and so we can get them awards and get them recognized. I'm not going to do it now because you just shot down my last 12 because they're just doing their job.
All right. Adam, just coming from captain level and having to deal with my first, annual evaluation is there is a difference between doing something that is your normal, duty.
Oh, these guys have gone honestly above and beyond.
Right.
Well, they're a 3.25, not a 3. They're a 3.25, not a 5.
And there are things, like in a small organization, I've said this before, we all have areas
that
of
was a joke for everyone who's still listening. That was a joke. I was being facetious.
Brian's backpedaling.
No, I mean, I said that was a 3.25, and then I didn't want you to go on your rant and then me not say something, so I felt like I needed to address that. I'm sorry.
3.25.
You didn't catch it. When he said that, he was like, they're doing above their job. And then I said, yeah, they're probably like a 3.25. Because remember we said they were all 3 employees last episode.
Yeah.
So
no,
it was a jab at the last.
I'm a 3. We have a 5-point system, but you can only be a 1, 3, or a 5, but it's a 5-point system.
Yeah. Anyway, very good discussion. Good discussion. It is very okay. And these will be my final comments. If you got any more, Brian, it is just talking about what we talked about last episode to this episode. It's very good to just have a good introspection on not only your fire department, but yourself, right? Yes. In any position that you're in, whether you're a firefighter, engineer, captain, lieutenant, chief, whatever, fire marshal, doesn't matter. Have an just a good introspection. I said it right the first time. Introspection.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you?
Introspection, right?
I give you touts, bro.
He's touting me.
Cue the dude cut out for this one. That was going to be the TikTok right there. That was it.
Hey, just evaluate yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Know where you're at. That's it. I don't know.
We all got to work together.
Well, and I guess that's what I would say is don't be the guy sitting at the table complaining. Understand that you may not see it through the lens that you've never seen it before or that seen it through today's lenses. As you get older, sometimes you need glasses, right? Because you don't have the same eyes you once had. And that's really what the point of this 2-part episode and the questions that I've asked is because I think we're in a departments, right? And I say that collectively across this country that we're so quick to do that. And I think that if we don't want to be like other organizations, and I say that very lovingly, but I'm not going to name drop, organizations being like, or jobs or professions, that's probably the better word, professions where it is truly becoming a division amongst their own selves. We have to be better at the communication piece. We have to be better at at being empathetic to these things, of things that we've never done or things that we haven't done in a long time or whatever. And I think that that's one of the best ways that we can do. Because again, I think we all have the end goal in mind is go home, leave it better than we found it, right? And understand that we're all a family. No matter how hard we try, those 3 same goals, I don't care what rank or what division you're assigned, those are all the same 3 goals that we all have. And I think that that's the end goal. And how we get there is through education and avocation.
Yep. One of our old intern chiefs gave us a challenge going. He was with us for a year. He was a chief with the bigger department that was near us, but he was our intern chief for a little bit. And he gave us a coin that said, "The men, the mission, the me." And I saw him on Memorial Day because we had our pancake breakfast, and I let him know that we were going to be going to the fire department to talk about culture. And he said, "Remember what I told you?" And I felt stupid because I was like, something about the mission. He's like, yeah. He pulls it out. He said, "The men, the mission, and me." And I was like, hell yeah, dude. I was like, he goes, "Well, what are you going to talk about?" I said, make the right decision for the right reason. And he was like, he's like, "Yeah, but how do you know if that's the right thing? Do the right thing." Anybody can say do the right thing, but your definition of the right thing might be different than somebody else's, Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting and good stuff. So.
And if you want to learn more about that, again, connect with one of us. We're literally all across the country. We've got a platform and a way to come to where you're at. Yeah. If you have a seminar, an institute, or whatever, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to come and kind of lead this conversation, whether it's in a room full of firefighters from all across your region or your state, or even if it's just interdepartmental in your department and you want to have the hard talk. We're willing to do that. And you know what? We're going to leave and we're going to forget all about it in the context of saying, yep, same problem, different town, and know that hopefully we've allowed you to have the hard conversation together and be better for it, because that's what it needs to be. It needs to get to the point of where we do this. Think of it kind of like therapy. It's a little bit like therapy, and it's good for everybody.
It's good discussion for sure.
Yeah. Great episode. Episode. Drop a comment. Let us know, again, what you wanted to see, and we'll be back next week. Roll it, Gigi.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!